Welcome to Casa Academy Chapter 8, Part 1, where we will cover property rights, estates, and tenancies.
You know, if you really want to build a truly successful career in real estate, you have to look way beyond what you can just see and touch. The goal of our explainer today is to set your foundation for real estate success by exploring the invisible, legal layers of property rights. We're going to pull back the curtain on how ownership actually works on paper, because honestly, that is where the real value and the real liability lives.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with real versus real property, move into the bundle of rights, explore freehold estates and co-ownership, navigate through non-freehold protections, and finally decode condos, co-ops, and timeshares. And keep in mind, everything we talk about anchors back to two golden questions. What rights do you have, and for how long?
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, understanding the fundamental difference between real and real property.
To understand real estate law, we actually have to start by clearing up some everyday vocabulary. People use real estate and real property all the time as if they mean the exact same thing, but legally, they absolutely do not. Real estate is just the physical asset. It's the tangible, immovable dirt on the ground, the minerals in the subsurface below, and the airspace right above it. You can see it, you can touch it. Real property, on the other hand, is the physical asset plus any improvements, plus the invisible layer of legal rights associated with owning it. So real property is the whole shebang.
Now compare that to personal property, which is movable and not permanently attached to the land. But here is where it gets kind of tricky, and where a lot of real estate disputes happen. Sometimes personal property transforms. Take a crystal chandelier. Sitting in a box at the hardware store, it's totally personal property, but once it's permanently wired into a dining room ceiling, it legally transforms into a fixture, meaning it has now become part of the real estate. To prevent buyer and seller disputes from completely blowing up a deal, you have to identify these fixtures clearly in the sales contract. Trust me, people will literally go to war over a chandelier.
We also have to consider some special legal rules for land bordering water. These are known as riparian and littoral rights. These rights dictate who owns the shoreline, how water can be used, and whether you can interfere with its natural flow. And this isn't just trivia, right? Imagine a farmer who relies entirely on a stream to irrigate their crops. If an upstream property owner decides to block or divert that water supply, the downstream farmer could be financially ruined. So yeah, water rights have massive real-world impacts.
Let's shift gears from the physical dirt and water to the invisible collection of legal powers that truly dictate what ownership means.
This invisible collection of legal powers is what we call the bundle of rights. When you own real property, you don't just own a location. You own specific legal powers. It's like a giant invisible legal toolkit. These tools include possession, control, enjoyment, exclusion, meaning you can literally keep others out, and disposition, which means you can sell it or give it away. The exact combination of these rights you hold determines the exact type of estate you possess.
That perfectly brings us to freehold estates and co-ownership. Freehold estates involve ownership rights that have an uncertain duration. Oh, and before we go further, your verification code is 203561. Let's look at how these ownership structures actually work in practice.
On one end of the spectrum, we have the fee simple estate. This is the most complete form of ownership possible. You have the entire bundle of rights and total control over how the property is transferred upon your death. On the other side, we have a life estate. Here, an individual gets to enjoy the rights of ownership, but only for the duration of a specified person's lifetime. The clock is literally ticking. The moment that specific life ends, the ownership automatically passes on according to whatever terms were set up in the life estate arrangement. Now, when multiple people own property together, things get highly specific, and these distinctions are absolutely crucial for your exams. Under a tenancy in common, owners can individually transfer or will their portion to anyone. But joint tenancy includes the right of survivorship, meaning if one owner dies, their share automatically passes to the surviving owners, not to their heirs. Finally, tenancy by the entireties is exclusively for married spouses. The law views the couple as a single legal unit. If we look at a real-world property record, let's say file number 998851, and it's held as a tenancy by the entireties, when one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse automatically owns the property in severalty, meaning sole ownership, completely bypassing probate.
Let's see how this builds as we transition from freehold ownership into non-freehold leasehold interests and the unique statutory shields offered here in Florida.
So non-freehold estates are really about possession and use, not ownership. A tenancy at will is when a tenant occupies a property with the landlord's permission, but there's no fixed lease term in place. Now contrast that with a tenancy at sufferance. This happens when a tenant's legal right to occupy the property has completely expired, yet they remain in the property without the landlord's consent. This is your classic holdover tenant scenario.
Florida law also steps in with some pretty powerful legal protections. The homestead protection applies to a person's primary residence and shields it from many types of creditor claims and judgment liens. However, and this is a big caveat here, homestead will not save you from a foreclosure if you fail to pay your mortgage or your property taxes. Additionally, Florida's elective share laws protect surviving spouses. Even if someone tries to write their spouse entirely out of their will, Florida law ensures the surviving spouse still has rights to a portion of the estate.
For our final section, we are going to explore some special ownership structures: condos, co-ops, and timeshares.
Imagine 3 identical residential buildings sitting side by side on the beach. From the outside, they look exactly the same. But legally, on the inside, they might operate completely differently based on how the property is sliced up. In a condominium, you own your specific unit outright, plus a fractional interest in shared elements like the pool. A timeshare is similar, but you share ownership of the same unit divided by blocks of time. A cooperative is totally different. You don't actually own your real estate unit at all. A corporation owns the building, and you buy shares that grant you a proprietary lease to occupy a specific unit.
Because these properties are structured so uniquely, the licensing to manage them is unique too. Salaried managers who run condominiums, cooperatives, and timeshare projects generally do not need a traditional real estate license. However, they are often required by law to hold a Community Association Manager, or CAM, license.
So the crucial point is this. Whenever you are evaluating a property scenario, whether that's on your licensing exam or in your future real estate practice, you need to use these 2 golden questions as your ultimate hack. First, what specific rights does the owner have from the bundle of rights? And second, for exactly how long do they have those rights? If you can define those 2 variables, the entire legal puzzle just pieces itself together.
The biggest takeaway here is that physical land is only half the story. As you continue your pre-license journey, I really challenge you to look past the physical dirt, the bricks, and the mortar. From now on, are you ready to evaluate every property you encounter not just by its curb appeal, but by its invisible legal bundle of rights and its timeline? Keep that legal lens focused, and I'll see you in the next chapter.